Scary stories to tell if you dare. Collected folklore retold by Joe Oliveto. The Haunted Room. Mike and Ted shared a room at college. One night, Mike woke up. He felt like the room had gotten very cold somehow. As his eyes got used to the darkness, he thought he saw a dark figure in the corner of the room. At first, he couldn't say a word, but finally, he was able to whisper to Ted just loud enough to wake him up. Ted woke up. When he looked at the corner of the room, he froze in terror. The dark figure looked like a young man about their age, but he wore old-fashioned clothes. He didn't say anything. He just stared at them for a few minutes. Then suddenly, he disappeared. Mike didn't sleep well for the rest of the night. Neither did Ted. The next morning, they told each other they had probably just imagined it. Their eyes must have played tricks on them in the dark. But the next night, the very same thing happened. They woke up to find the room much colder than it should have been, and they saw the same young man standing in the corner, staring at them. They told the school what was happening. No one really believed them, but they switched them to a different room anyway. Two other young men took their room. Those other young men saw the same thing. Some people started to say the room was haunted by the ghost of a student who was murdered there. Soon, no students would sleep there. So one of the teachers at the college said he would sleep there. He didn't believe in ghosts and said he would prove there was nothing to be afraid of. After spending one night in the room, he changed his mind. He told everyone that worked at the college that the stories were true. He'd woken up in the middle of the night, just like the students. The room was cold, and in the corner, he saw a young man in old-fashioned clothes staring at him. The college decided the best thing to do was close off the room. They boarded up the windows and locked up the door. This all happened many years ago. To this day, the college still keeps the room closed, and no one has ever spent the night there since. Under the bed. A husband and wife were on vacation together. They checked into their hotel room in the morning and went out for the rest of the day. When they got back to the room, though, they noticed a strange smell. The smell was so bad that they had trouble sleeping. They complained to the hotel manager, but he said there was nothing he could do. All the other rooms were taken, so they tried to ignore the smell, but each night it got worse and worse. By the third night, they couldn't sleep at all. They told the manager to come to the room himself and see how bad the smell was. When the manager smelled the room for himself, he said it would need to be cleaned up right away. He didn't know what was causing the smell, but he hoped that it would help. The cleaning people vacuumed and scrubbed all around the room, but the smell didn't go away. Then they lifted up the bed to clean beneath it. What they saw made all of them scream. There, underneath the bed, was a rotting, dead body. Footsteps. My mother's family didn't have a lot of money when she was growing up. They all lived together in a small house. Everyone had to take turns sleeping in the attic. It was dark and scary up there. The person who lived in the house before had killed himself up in the attic. But there wasn't enough space in the other rooms. On this night, it was my grandmother's turn. She had been asleep for about an hour when one of my aunts called up to her. "Mama, are you okay?" she asked. "Yes, everything is fine," my grandmother called back. "Why?" "I heard footsteps," my aunt said. "I thought you couldn't get any sleep." "I've been asleep this whole time," my grandmother said. "You must have been hearing things. It was an old house. They always heard a lot of strange noises like that." My grandmother started to fall back asleep. She almost dozed off when something else woke her. The sounds of footsteps on the other side of the attic. They were heavy, like a man's. They kept getting closer to her, slowly but surely. My grandmother didn't know what to do. If she tried to run, there was no way she could escape in time. The footsteps got closer, until they stopped right in front of her. It was too dark in the attic for her to see anything. After a moment, she heard the sound of a man laughing. The sound came from the spot where the footsteps had stopped. The man laughed and didn't seem to stop. My grandmother was terrified. There was no chance she could get away now. She was a very religious woman, so the only thing she could think of was to pray. It seemed like she prayed for hours. Finally, the laughter stopped. She heard some more footsteps, then a creaking noise. After a few moments, she found the courage to turn on the light. There was no one there, but my grandmother did see something else that scared her. The floor of the attic was always pretty dusty. In the dust, she saw a large set of footprints.